Hey y'all, so today we're going to be talking about how to choose your wedding date based on astrology. So I've broken down some key points for you to figure this out at home, but I'm also introducing the Save the Date package, and it's on rotation411.com. The links will be below if you'd like my help in navigating how to choose your best wedding date, or even possibly figuring out if your current partner is an ideal spouse or life partner for you. So we're just going to break it down with some basic, marriage compatibility, and then we'll kind of show how you apply that to figuring out, what's the best date. You just got to save the date. So I know a lot of couples, like, interestingly enough, I had the thought that 11/22/22 would be a really cool wedding date. I've actually been thinking that for, here and there over the past year. It's come to my mind. And the day came and went, and of course, it didn't occur to me. Oh, now there's a loud motorcycle out there, so my apologies. And yeah, anyway, so I thought that would be a cool day, but for me personally, Jupiter was retrograde in Pisces on 11/22, so that wouldn't be the ideal day. For anyone with Jupiter in Pisces or Aries when Jupiter's retrograde. And actually, I was going to wait till I got there, but I am divorced. So the first time I was married, Jupiter was retrograde in Pisces. So anyway, uh, excuse me. So, um, so that's the thing, is the wedding day is the birthday of the marriage. And aside from the synastry aspects, if you've subscribed to my channel and you see how I break those down in determining how long a couple will last, whether they'll get married or not, whether they will get divorced or not, I have plenty of videos on that. But for today, we're just going to go over, how to decide when is the best time to get married. So I did want to start with Jupiter there, even though he made it down here on the list. Jupiter he represents marriage, wealth, sort of like the family, like my grandparents had 5 kids and they paid off the land through gardening and chickens, and the children helped. So in the olden days, the more children you had to tend with the land, the more wealthy you were. So Jupiter is kind of that sort of a wealth. He brings a lot of benevolence. He is marriage, but he's also the spouse in a woman's chart. So for men, it's Venus and the moon. I'm not sure if I did that video yet. I'll go check. I'll kick it out to you guys soon. It's kind of complex. There's the ideal girlfriend, Venus, and then the ideal wife, the moon. Ideally, a woman is going to aspect both of those planets very well. Anyway, so let's just go ahead and we'll get to Jupiter. Let's just go ahead and go down the list. How to choose your wedding date based on astrology. So the first thing that you want to do is you want to look at the composite chart, or the Davison chart. Now the composite chart is the birth charts. It's the angles. So some of this astrology is going to be a little advanced for some of you, but some of it you could pay attention to. So the composite chart is where we take both birth charts, and at the midpoint, which is sort of one of the main angles, we calculate its own chart. So it's basically like the two become one, and it's their chart and the relationships chart. And the Davidson chart is taking both birthdays and times and calculating an actual point in time and space. So basically the birthday of the relationship. So if somebody was born in 1980 and somebody in 1990, most likely their Davison's going to be like 1985. And if one was born in, Florida and one was born in LA, probably the point, time, and space is going to be somewhere in Texas, all right, if that makes sense. So that's sort of the actual point in time and space. So if you do look at my packages and you order one from me, I always do the Davison and the composite at the same time, because you can kind of compare the two. So I know, for one example, for me, like, a lot of the stuff is in the first house in the composite, and then the 7th house in the Davidson, which are both very significant relationship houses. And that's kind of what we're getting into here. So in the composite house, or the Davison house, is so say that your composite chart with your lover has an Aries rising. We'll keep it simple because the blueprint of all charts is an Aries rising, right? Aries is the first sign in the zodiac. So when we take, say, the first house would be Aries there. The seventh house would be Aries opposite Libra, okay? And we'll just go with those two for now. So the first house is your identity and the seventh house is partnership. But in a composite or Davidson, remember, it's the whole relationship. It's the two becoming one. So the first house is the identity of the couple, and the seventh house is how the couple deals with other people, because the seventh house is how we deal with other people. So, for example, in one that I was kind of just mentioning, the first house was like in the composite was full of planets, but in the Davidson it was actually flip-flopped because these two had a lot of mirroring going on, okay? So with that being said, some astrologists say the seventh house isn't actually a good place to have a lot of planets in the composite, because it means that the couple will have to deal with a lot of other people, and that can interfere with their intimacy. But at the same time, the seventh house traditionally in just, an individual's birth chart is partnership and marriage. So it's debatable. I haven't quite gotten deep enough to make any certain things, and I don't want to go too deep into it right now. But the first house is identity. The fifth house is romance, dating. The seventh house is partnership, the eighth house is intimacy, and the 11th house. And if you guys want, let me know. I can put a PDF of this for you if you want to kind of follow along. And the 11th house is wish fulfillment and also networking. So if I do notice the midheaven has a lot of significance in marriage and relationships as well. I haven't quite figured out why. The midheaven is supposed to be our career path, but it can also indicate, our highest point in life. So, somebody, most successful people, especially, well, let's just say men, tend to be married. So there is some sort of, business component to marriage. You want to have you got to have the intimacy, the friendship, the love, but then you also have to be able to work well together in making decisions. So there is a 10th house component as well that I would look at, which is the midheaven. But anyways, so the sun, you want to make sure that the sun is transiting one of these significant houses. Even the ICMC, like I'm saying, the fourth house, the 10th house would be significant, but you've got to look at the whole picture, where are all the other planets, which we're going to get into how to dissect that a little bit. But let's say the sun is transiting the sixth house composite. Like, that's kind of a boring house, it's house of daily tasks. So unless you two have maybe a lot of sixth house stuff in your synastry and you like to work together, that may work for you. Or it may be like the relationship just ends up, the marriage ends up becoming tedious because you chose to get married when the sun was transiting the sixth house in the composite, So maybe if you have a lot of sixth house stuff, you might want to balance that with something more ethereal and dreamy, like 12th house, 11th house, Now let's get into the moon. Now, if you've been following along with me at all so far on Rotation 411 Astrology, if you have not, I do suggest that you like and subscribe. But anyway, I'll be putting out more content. My heart gets a little torn about wanting to do tarot videos, but I do a lot of tarot readings for clients each day, so I just don't have the time to do that. Also, if you go to Rotation 411, you can order tarot readings from me. I put all of my packages on there now. I finally got organized. So the moon in the same polarity as the couple, that I think that you shouldn't even marry someone unless your moons are in the same polarity. So this is, air and fire and earth and water. So basically, I'm not going to break it all down. I have plenty of videos on it. Maybe when I get some time, I'll link some of them above. But yes, so you want the moon to be in the same polarity. If you've been following along at all, I wouldn't even recommend to marry someone. So if you're kind of in the stage where maybe you're having cold feet or you're waiting for a proposal, you might want to just check out one of my Synastry packages. And, if you have the birth dates, times, and places, I can look into that for you. If you don't have the time and place, I can give you an estimate. But anyway, and there's a package for that as well. But yeah, so obviously, if you're getting married based on my advice, which I wouldn't recommend, I won't even date anyone whose moon's not in my polarity anymore. I attract a lot of Aries moons because I'm an Aries sun and we get along really well as friends, but it's just never turned into anything serious. And I met a double Aries in the last year, and I realized, I won't be entertaining Aries moons, although I have great friends, even guy friends that I've hung out with and had a blast with. But anyway, so let's say that the couple's moon is in, the moon's changing every 2 to 3 days all month. So I probably have a video where I rant on about the moon phases, a few. So if the couple, let's say, is water and earth, or fire and air, or two fiery moons in Sagittarius or something, then you want to make sure that the moon is going to be in a, let's say your moons are in Leo and Sagittarius trine, which is great for marriage, or even opposition like Leo and Aquarius. You want to make sure that when you get married, the moon is, that day is going to be, and especially the time, because the moon changes. So at 7 p.m. your time, the moon might end up being, pushing out into Pisces from Aquarius, right? So you want to get married the time in the day when the moon is transiting, in the same sign, as the same polarity as yours, each of your polarities, okay? I wouldn't say the composite here, I would say the actual couple's polarity. So my moon is in Virgo. I don't want to get married when the moon is in, well, maybe Gemini would be okay because they're both Mercury ruled, but there is real issues with males moons and being in moons and Venus being in the sign of Gemini that I see with fidelity. So yeah, they're all honking out there. So I wouldn't actually recommend that anyone, unless you have a lot of air in your chart, gets married when the moon is in Gemini, because that could indicate, future infidelity. So there's a lot of layers to this. But anyways, so that would be the next thing I would check for. If you need help with that, you can get a reading. You can even, I have a link to chat with me as well if you just want to figure that out one day. And then, so let's see here. Then you want to go ahead and check. So I figured something out. Saturn goes retrograde every year, and he takes years, to go through a sign, but he's the father of long-term commitment, obligation, kind of for better or for worse, getting through the rough times. If a couple doesn't have Saturn in their chart, whether even tough Saturn, like Saturn square Sun, can work in a marriage or even in a couple. It can actually give longevity, even though Saturn is really malefic. Like Saturn square Pluto is horrible, but Saturn square Sun, Saturn square Venus can actually provide a lot of security in a relationship. So with that being said, you just want to make sure, especially in those circumstances, that Saturn is not retrograde when you get married. So I was kind of going, when I had this epiphany, I was like, I don't even remember what prompted it. It was in the last year. I was like, that's why the divorce rate is so high, because everybody gets married in June and August, and that's when Saturn's retrograde, like smack dab in the middle of the year. But I went and checked a few things. Like, if you guys have seen my other videos, my grandparents were married for 52 and a half years. So a lot of times they're like my golden children example. Anyway, so I went and looked, and they got married August 27th. It was 3 days after Saturn went direct that year. And so I kind of checked a few things, and he actually sometimes goes direct much earlier in the year, much later in the year. So I definitely don't recommend getting married when Saturn is retrograde, and I don't recommend when he's stationed, like that one day, that actually could be a good day for security. But Mercury also, we all know that it's not a good time to sign contracts. So you want to make sure that Saturn and Mercury are not retrograde for sure. Like I said, I had gotten married and divorced when Jupiter was retrograde in Pisces like 12 years ago, and but as I was married that first year, Jupiter moved into Aries, which is actually a good time for somebody whose Jupiter is in Aries to get married. That was one of the best years of my life, all in all, like in the marriage and independently. So, because the marriage lasted like 3 or 4 years. But anyways, so I really recommend not getting married when Saturn, Jupiter, or Mercury are retrograde. And then as far as Venus and Mars, ideally they would be direct, but you could kind of, if you're kind of have a window of when you want to get married, like, okay, we know we want to get married summer of 2023, between May and June, well, for example, the last three, making sure it's still recording, the last like 2 months, I can't even remember when he goes direct, but Mars has been retrograde in Gemini for 3 months. So, that's a Mercury ruled sign, and for me, I have Mars in Gemini. So, I wouldn't even recommend to someone like that like me to get married in the last 3 months. So that's why 11/22/22 just wasn't an ideal day, aside from Jupiter was also retrograde in Pisces, you see. So if you had wanted to have like an autumn wedding, I might have suggested to maybe get married on New Year's or something, have a nice winter wedding, okay, or early spring. And so that's basically what you want to look at. Pluto is significant as well. So ideally you would want all the planets to be direct, but this could be a variation of, it could be a small 3 days that this is happening, 1 year. So anyway, and then you want to note how Juno is aspected in Synastry and apply rulerships, etc. accordingly. So I may do an independent video just kind of breaking down, or actually I'm going to start a series. It's been a little bit on the shelf, but I'm getting back into it now. I kind of reset everything up. So I'm going to be doing a Juno video soon, but Juno is just huge for marriage in general, along with Jupiter. So ironically, I had found in my first marriage that his Jupiter was conjunct my Juno in the 5th house in Aquarius. Now, Juno, I would typically think, that it would be my Jupiter that would be aspected in a marriage, but because it's usually you want the man's sun or Venus to be with your Jupiter in the Synastry overlays, okay? So basically in a lot of marriages that I see, a woman's Jupiter sign, like if her Jupiter's in Capricorn, her husband is a Capricorn. I see that a lot, just looking at couples that seem to be thriving and doing well. So with that being said, I would have thought, maybe the man's Juno would be conjunct the woman's Jupiter, would indicate marriage. So I do believe that it could go either way there. But you do think Juno is a feminine asteroid and Jupiter is a male. So my Juno was conjunct his Jupiter. So I do feel it was written that we would get married. But we also had some pretty... we had some other aspects that indicated that we wouldn't last as well. All right, so maybe we could have bypassed that. All right, that's why I'm saying if there's any doubts or questions, I would recommend just getting the Synastry or the deluxe package where I can dig into the composite and the Davison and all of that. Anyways, so when it comes to Juno, as far as picking the day, for you guys, just doing this independently, if I haven't totally confused you already, I know some of you can totally keep up with me. I have a lot of clients like that. But for those of you where this is just kind of going over your head and maybe you'll figure it out later, I would just say to look at the Synastry overlays. And I have a package where you could just order that and I can go into it with you there. And it's a little bit more affordable than the Save the Date package. That's a package for couples that are, seriously getting married. They have a wedding budget, all right? So anyway, you want to note how Juno is aspected, and then you would kind of look, okay, so if Jupiter is going to be in Aries in April, okay, and then, for example, my Juno's in Aquarius. Let's see here. Actually, let's put it like this. Jupiter is going to go back into Aries December 20th. I have a Jupiter in Aries, so from then until May is a good window for me. Okay, so for example, like a winter January through February, like a Valentine's Day wedding wouldn't be the worst idea because the sun would be transiting my Juno at that time. So if I was looking at this for one of you, I would say, like especially a female, I would say, okay, I don't know which day it is, you guys. I'd have to pull it up. And I'm getting a new computer for this, so I can pull up, because my software won't work on a Mac. But anyway, so I actually may be able to do more of, even faster. I'm always getting faster. But, I could actually look, okay, what exact 2 or 3 days is the sun going to be conjunct your Juno exactly, right? When Juno is the marriage asteroid, keep in mind. All right, so then we want to look at Jupiter and the nodes and the vertex, basically. And then down here, I just have a little note. I don't want to make this too long, all right? But just to give you guys a little taste, and I'm going to be doing more videos on Jupiter and Juno and the moon and Venus and all of that. So look out for those. Like and subscribe if you want to see them. Yeah, no more tarot videos for now. I can do private tarot readings, but they just take up too much of my time, and I have so much to share with you guys about astrology, all right? And I'm gonna redo the celebrity lives because the audio and the setup, I was just figuring it all out. I don't know if you guys have followed along other YouTube channels. I'm pretty technically adequate, but I have Mercury square Uranus in my birth chart, so sometimes I overcomplicate things, all right? Not even adequate. I'm like pretty genius with tech, but I get messy because I do too much at once. All right, so of course I decided also to shoot this at the noisiest time of the day, so if you guys can hear it. But I want to hit happy hour on the online psychic network I work on there, so if you guys want to get, like, I can chat with you over there, and I linked that to Rotation 411's homepage. So all right, I'm waiting for that guy to kind of die down his motorcycle out there. But I do have a good mic setup, so hopefully you guys don't hear that too much. All right, so let me just kind of tell you what the nodes and the vertex are if you're not familiar, and then we'll just wrap it up here. So the north node and the south node are, the north node is your life destiny. The south node is, you know, your childhood, what you're familiar with, what you came into this life incarnated as. Now, a lot of people believe in past lives. I will entertain it when I'm doing readings. Like, I know that the way that I was taught tarot, that certain things will indicate past lives, like Six of Cups, you know, as a past life relationship. But I personally don't necessarily believe in past life. So I broke this down in other videos, but basically my belief is that we go through different forms of energy, just to keep it simple. And so it may be whatever we brought and we needed to learn here is the north node, but whatever we come with that, you know, we're comfortable with is our south node. All right. So with that being said, I'm competing with this guy with his motorcycle out here. You're headed toward your north node, and your north node's not that comfortable, but if somebody's heavily aspecting your south node, you may feel like they're holding you back in life. So it may be that once you've evolved to a certain point and you really have evolved in your north node, that a south node partnership may be a nice thing to settle into. You know, maybe you've achieved all your life goals. And then as somebody who's contacting your south node, you know, they're always, whether they're contacting the north node or the south node because they're in opposition, they're always going to be contacting both nodes. So this is very soulmate if you guys have watched my other videos and destined. So first of all, if you've gotten this far to be comparing the composite and the synastry to see when is the best wedding day, you're pretty familiar with how your nodes are aspected. Ideally, you want them to be trine or in opposition. Opposition is very twin flame. Or even conjunct, which is usually when you marry someone like pretty close to your age, within months. So you want to look at, okay, what's the groom's north node, what's the bride's, and this isn't like the moons. Like if they're in different polarities and stuff or different elements, it's not so significant. But if they are, like, say they're very different nodes, then you want to look at, like, okay, maybe one's in Scorpio and one's in Aries, but they're both ruled by Mars. So then you really want to be mindful of, like, where is Mars transiting? Is Mars transiting in the 7th house? Oh, that's a great time to get married. See, so there's a lot of layers, but these are things to keep in mind, okay? So, and then the vertex is a point in destiny that's activated, all right? Now, from what I've studied on it, a lot of astrologers, they don't really exactly know what it means. They say it's just something that gets activated, like a fated meeting. And I have found one significant vertex occurrence in my life. I don't think I've just had the time to really dig into it. It's something I definitely keep an eye on. But with most of my clients, I'm not pulling up, like I said, that deep software, which I'm going to be able to pull up a lot better. A lot of times I'm only digging that deep when you order a package from me on Rotation 411. But most of my clients, I'm just answering quickly and getting them the information as fast as I can. So that's why it is nice to order that deep insight package where I can really take the time to study your chart and like look at what the vertex is doing. But anyways, so say your vertex, like my vertex is, I think it's like, I can't remember if it's my north node or my vertex because they're both in Aries, but my vertex is in my 7th house along with my north node and my Jupiter and my sun. Anyway, so I was meant to be married anyway, but you know, most men are afraid of that because they get in my 7th house partnership and then they say, oh my God, and they run. So anyway, so the vertex is the activation point. So you want to look at that too, like, is Jupiter transiting the vertex? Is the sun transiting the vertex, you know? So for example, like in April, which is my solar return, the sun would be transiting my vertex and my sun and my Jupiter, like that. Like April would probably be the best time maybe somewhere in Aquarius season 2, because my Juno's there. You see what I'm saying? I'm using me as an example, you guys, just to kind of get this out there quickly, because I know it off the top of my head. So basically, just to summarize, you want to check what planets are retro. You want to check both natal charts. You want to check the transits on the natal charts, the transits on the Synastry, the Composite, and the Davison. That would be, the quickest way. And they're just really not going to quit. It's just amazing how many motorcycles are going to go by right now. All right, so my apologies if this comes out heavily edited, just motorcycle after motorcycle after motorcycle, which, yeah, anyway. So, yeah, I think I should have said this at the beginning of the video, but basically what I just said is the easiest way to break it down, okay? You just check what planets are in retrograde right now. How do those affect, basically you want to look at what's retrograde and what the transits are, and then how they're affecting primarily these 4 charts: the natal, the Synastry, the Composite, and the Davison. All right, that's the save the date package. I can go ahead and do it for you if this is really complicated, and it'll basically be a video of me here, hopefully fighting off the motorcycles, telling you. And sometimes I don't love being on camera, so it could be audio. You can even request in the notes if you order, hey, I just want the audio. I'd rather it be like a podcast. That's fine with me. Either way, let me know. But it'll basically also with a little bit of screen sharing. So let me kind of show you. It'll be me, putting up your chart, so it won't just me pointing at the screen. So let me go ahead and show you guys right now. I wanted to show you this. The website here, I have an article if you want to check it out. It's not as in-depth as this video, but it shows you how this works, what's the best factors, what's included in the save the date package. So it's the bride's birth chart emailed to you, groom's birth chart, the Synastry chart, the couple's composite chart, the sum total of both charts. And so when I'm doing your videos to explain this, and then I'll give you send you the wedding date chart here, the birthday of the wedding, and you can customize the photo if you want to send me a background that you would like, and we'll mail that to you framed. And let's say you pick a day, but then you have to get the vendor and all of that and make sure everything's good, so we'll mail it out to you once we have confirmation. We don't want to send you the wrong one there. But let me go ahead and also show you. Here's how you order the Synastry packages. This is the Romance Astrology in the menu, and here's all the options. So for a lot of you that are just kind of studying and checking it out, it says choose an option, so you can do Synastry with no birth times. I do that quite often for clients every day, basically. Synastry report with the birth times, that's where I really dig into my software and get a deeper look. And I like this because this shows you, see, I overlay their chart into yours and your chart into theirs, and I just look at all those crazy aspects, and I have a lot of conclusions and patterns that I've found over thousands and thousands of couples. So then we have the Synastry composite with the Davison, the save the date. And let's say you already know the Synastry and all of that. We have the relationship transits where I can tell you what's coming up in the next year or two for your relationship. So yeah, I basically wanted to open this though to just show you guys that Synastry report, how that looks. So when you do the deluxe package or the save the date package, you get the Synastry, the composite, the Davison, and with the save the date you get the frame thing, and it's just videos of me just basically doing what I just did, but very exclusively to you. So one more thing I want to show you guys before we go. Let's see. I just made this manifestation PDF for you all. So I don't know how well you can see that. The Emperor fell out the other day, one of my decks. It's not the deck I've been using for clients, so now he's sitting there because I'm an Aries, so alright. He doesn't usually sit there though, you guys. Alright, so this is a weekly manifesting plan, and I've been doing it for a while now. It's pretty cool. So do check that out. I put it up on the, let's see. So basically, if you guys go over here and you click and you spin this wheel, then you most likely are going to win the manifestation PDF. I can't remember where else that I had it for you guys. Yeah, and then you can also get 5% off, 15 or $10 off. So if you want to get a tarot reading, my tarot readings are $20. So if you win the $15 off, that's pretty much like a $5 tarot reading, which is not a bad deal. So definitely spin the wheel. I'm going to work on making it look even more like the Wheel of Fortune. But yeah, that's pretty cool. I like it. So that's how you can get your manifestation PDF and possibly get a discount on one of the packages or a tarot reading. So let's see. Thank you guys so much for following along. I hope that I kept it pretty straight and to the point. I know I tend to get a little bit off sometimes, but I feel like the little notes helped. So definitely like and subscribe if you want to learn more about astrology compatibility. And thank you for those of you who've been waiting for me to get back to the channel. I have, like I said, few Synastry videos coming out. I got to finish up, the big one for 4, Scorpio, Sun, Aries, Moon video. That's on deck. So, and the birthday series as well. So I'm sending you all lots of love, blessings, and light as always. Thank you.